There are people who don't trust happiness. People who flinch when life starts to feel warm. People who turn away from the very things they once prayed for. Because somewhere along the way, joy became a warning sign, not a gift. And if that sounds like you, you're not alone. You're just someone who learned the hard way that even light can burn. Happiness is supposed to be simple. A soft place the world pretends we can fall into without fear, without hesitation, without wondering when the ground will collapse beneath our feet. But for some people, happiness is not a sanctuary. It's a cliff, a fragile moment suspended over everything they've lost, everything they fear, everything they know can disappear. It's strange, isn't it? How something so gentle can feel so threatening. How a smile can feel like a trap. How a moment of warmth can taste like the beginning of another winter. There are souls who live like this, breathing carefully, feeling cautiously, loving with one foot already out the door. Not because they want to, but because joy has betrayed them before. For them, happiness is not the presence of something good. It is the countdown to its absence, a ticking clock, a storm on the horizon. And so they learn to fear it, to dodge it, to sabotage it, before it has the chance to hurt them first. They don't do this consciously. They don't sit down and decide, I will run from anything that makes me feel alive. No, the fear is quieter than that, more instinctive, more ingrained, like a reflex carved into their bones by years of unpredictable tides. By the kind of life where the good moments always came with strings attached, conditions, consequences, or a sudden collapse that felt personal even when it wasn't. Some people grew up learning that happiness was dangerous, because it never lasted. Maybe they had parents who were calm one minute and explosive the next, leaving them unsure if the laughter at the dinner table was real or a setup. Maybe they learned that affection was a temporary illusion, that tenderness could switch into cruelty without warning, that safety was just a trick of the light. So their nervous systems adjusted, their hearts adapted. Their minds built subtle armor, invisible even to themselves, and that armor whispers to them as adults. Don't relax, don't trust this, don't get comfortable, don't get attached, don't feel too deeply. Don't let your guard down. Happiness is bait. Something always follows. Others learned it later through heartbreak, betrayal, loss that felt undeserved. They learned that loving meant losing, that hoping meant falling, that joy came with a price they were always forced to pay in the end. And so they became cautious with themselves. They learned to brace for impact before anything good could fully bloom. They learned to hold their breath in moments when they should have been able to breathe freely. They learned to smile while planning their escape. Happiness became a battlefield where the enemy wasn't other people, it was their memories. And then there are those who don't fear happiness because of trauma, but because of identity. Because they've grown used to pain. Pain is predictable. Pain doesn't lie. Pain keeps its promises. Pain doesn't vanish when you're finally starting to trust it. There are people who find a strange comfort in sadness, not because they enjoy it, but because it's familiar. It's a language they know. It's a landscape they can navigate with their eyes closed. Happiness, on the other hand, feels like foreign territory. Like a bright, unfamiliar room where they don't know where the exits are. It feels unstable, too bright, too fragile, too dependent on things they cannot control. And so they cling to the darkness, not out of preference, but out of survival. Because darkness doesn't disappoint. Darkness doesn't abandon. Darkness stays. There is a deep loneliness in being someone who fears happiness. A loneliness most people don't understand. To the outside world, it looks irrational, even dramatic. Why wouldn't someone want to be happy? Why would anyone push away love, success, intimacy, or peace? But inside the mind of someone who associates happiness with danger, the logic is painfully clear. If happiness leads to hurt, better to avoid it altogether. It's a coping mechanism, disguised as pessimism. It's a defense mechanism, disguised as bitterness. It's self-preservation, wearing the mask of indifference. Some people sabotage their relationships when they start to care too much. Not because they want to be alone, but because the vulnerability of being seen terrifies them. Happiness makes them visible. Happiness forces their heart into open space, and open spaces, to them, feel like exposure. A place where arrows can reach. A place where loss can strike. A place where love can turn into loss without warning. They would rather end something early than experience watching it die slowly. They would rather walk away first than be left behind again. It is not cruelty. It is fear wearing the only armor it has left. For others, happiness triggers guilt. They grew up believing that joy was undeserved, that comfort was selfish, that wanting more made them ungrateful or wrong. Somewhere deep inside, they believe happiness is reserved for other people, better people, stronger people, people who didn't make the mistakes they made. So when something good comes into their life, they don't reach for it. They step back. They shrink. They apologize for even being in the room. They carry shame like a sacred burden, one that tells them they have no right to feel lightness after carrying so much pain. And so every moment of happiness feels like a spotlight on wounds they've never let themselves heal. There are also those who fear happiness because it means change. Even good change is still change, and change is loss in disguise. Happiness forces them to evolve, grow, confront parts of themselves they've avoided. It forces them into uncertainty. It asks them to risk something, to give something, to step into the unknown. And the unknown is where their fears live. The unknown holds mirrors they've spent years avoiding. So they choose the familiar, even when it hurts. They stay small even when they want to expand. They hide in routines that drain them because the alternative feels too unpredictable. But perhaps the most haunting truth is this. Some people fear happiness because it makes the emptiness louder. When the noise of life quiets down, when something beautiful enters their world, they suddenly become aware of everything in themselves that still aches. Happiness exposes the cracks. It illuminates the wounds. It reflects their insecurities back to them with a painful clarity. Joy doesn't erase their darkness, it highlights it. And so instead of feeling lifted, they feel overwhelmed. Instead of feeling grateful, they feel defective. Instead of feeling alive, they feel like they're failing at something everyone else seems to navigate effortlessly. Imagine living inside a mind that interprets happiness as a storm warning. Imagine being someone who hears laughter and instinctively listens for the sound of something breaking. Imagine wanting to love deeply, but feeling your chest tighten every time someone gets close. Imagine wanting to relax, but feeling your body brace against comfort, like a soldier who cannot stop anticipating gunfire. Imagine wanting to trust life, but having memories that whisper, "Last time you trusted, you suffered." This is the quiet agony of people who fear happiness. A fear so subtle, so deeply woven into their internal wiring, that most of the time, they don't even know they're living inside it. They say trauma teaches you to expect the worst. But what they don't tell you is that it also teaches you to reject the best. To distrust it, to suspect it, to flinch in its presence, like someone avoiding a blow. Happiness becomes a forbidden fruit. Beautiful, tempting, intoxicating. Yet always just out of reach, because you cannot bring yourself to believe you deserve it, or that it will stay, or that it will be kind. And maybe the saddest part is that these people are not weak. They are not fragile. They are not broken. They are simply tired. Tired of rebuilding after every collapse. Tired of hoping only to lose. Tired of trying to heal wounds that never seem to close. Tired of opening their hearts only to watch life carve something out of them again. Tired of living on emotional fault lines. For them, happiness is not the opposite of pain. It is the prelude to it. And so they retreat into numbness, because numbness, at least, is predictable. But here's the quiet truth no one tells them. Happiness is dangerous, but so is never letting yourself feel it. Pain protects you, yes, but it also isolates you. It keeps you alive, but it does not let you live. It keeps you safe, but it starves you slowly. Avoiding happiness doesn't prevent heartbreak. It prevents healing. It prevents connection. It prevents the small miracles that make life worth enduring. The danger of happiness is real, but it is not the kind that destroys you. It is the kind that changes you. The kind that asks you to step out of the shadows you've memorized. The kind that forces you to rewrite the stories you tell yourself. The kind that demands courage, not because happiness is fragile, but because you are. And fragility is not something to fear. It is something to honor, something to explore, something that can become strength if you let life soften you instead of shatter you. Maybe happiness isn't supposed to feel safe at first. Maybe it's supposed to feel unfamiliar, like learning a language you were never taught, but somehow always knew. Maybe it's supposed to scare you, because truly being alive is terrifying. Because love is terrifying. Because healing is terrifying. Because hope is terrifying. But terror is not a reason to avoid something. Sometimes it is the doorway. And yet, I want to speak to the version of you that flinches at happiness, the version that still lives inside old shadows, still wears old armor, still bracing for storms that ended years ago. I want you to know this. You are not strange for fearing joy. You are not dramatic for expecting loss. You are not weak for wanting to protect yourself. You are human. You are someone who learned to survive in a world that did not make survival easy. You adapted in ways that kept you alive. An adaptation is not a flaw. It is proof that you endured what others will never understand. But you deserve more than survival. You deserve moments that soften you. Moments that make you forget you ever had to be strong. Moments that don't feel like preparation for pain. You deserve the kind of happiness that doesn't demand fear from you. The kind that doesn't feel like a mistake. The kind that doesn't feel like a countdown. You deserve a life where joy feels like a homecoming, not a threat. And that kind of life takes time. It takes unlearning. It takes forgiveness, not of others, but of yourself. Forgiveness for the walls you built, the exits you planned, the love you turned away from, the moments you couldn't enjoy because your mind was too busy searching for danger. Forgiveness for not knowing how to receive the things you've always wanted. Healing doesn't begin when you feel safe. Healing begins the moment you decide to stop running from what scares you, even when what scares you is something good. Happiness is dangerous because it asks you to believe there is a future you cannot see yet. Because it asks you to trust parts of yourself you don't fully understand. Because it asks you to let life touch you without flinching. But happiness is also dangerous in another way. It can rebuild you. It can rewrite you. It can return you to yourself. And maybe, just maybe, the real reason some people fear happiness is because deep down they know it has the power to break every lie they were taught about who they were allowed to be.